Hey guys, I've been looking forward to reviewing Bluecast resin since I first got a resin printer, and thanks to Alexander, a new friend of mine, Bluecast has sent me a bottle of their CR3A to look at. I didn't know it at the time, but Alexander has a small jewellery store in France making some fantastic stuff, and as I've said, he was the one that organised this, so I'm very grateful to him, and of course to Bluecast themselves. I've had dozens of requests to review Bluecast, and I've heard great things about them, but I've also heard terrible things. However, Bluecast has more than one product, and this is their CR3A, one which they feel is one of the easiest castable resins to print and ensure excellent casting. So is it? I'm lucky enough to have 3 printers to play with, but I've had a lot of requests to put the QD through its paces, so we'll give that a go. Bluecast retailers do provide a link to useful printing data, but of course not all printers are listed. As the QD resembles the Photon S, I opted to use those settings initially, and after a little tweaking I came up with these. A standard Amerilabs Town test print came out pretty good. As always, a little more tweaking might improve things further, so don't be afraid to experiment. When deciding what to print and cast, a simple starting point was my VogGuy coins. As Valentine's Day is coming up, I thought a little jewellery might put some of us in good books, and I came across these excellent earrings on Thingiverse. To make casting them easier, I filled in the bottom section using Blender. Finally, I was cheeky enough to ask Alexander another favour. I asked him if he'd got anything I could print, and he sent me this file. This fantastic design isn't something I can share or sell on, I'm sorry to say, as it's part of a new range Alexander is bringing out. I'll be honest, the moment I saw this ring, I felt it was a little beyond my current skill level. All those dimples and angles, it's very demanding, but it's nice to have something to aim for. With a plate full of prints, I set the QD running, and it failed. There wasn't enough adhesion to the plate, and everything got stuck to the FEP. After cleaning, I used my prime print coat method, and sure enough it worked a treat. Well, actually I thought it had worked. Some of the prints had worked, but most hadn't. You can actually see some appear to have sheared off, and that is an issue with this resin. It's heavy. If you check the literature, you can see that medium supports are recommended. As some of mine were medium, I swapped almost everything for heavy supports and increased the print density. I printed again, and this time it was a success. The prints looked very nice, but there is an issue here. Can you see how they look wet in places? That's uncured resin. Now, I do tend to be pretty flippant when I'm washing my prints. A quick splash in alcohol, maybe a little churn, and a blast of air is quite typical for me. But that wouldn't touch these. What you're seeing here is actually after 10 minutes in an ultrasonic cleaner, so it's a pretty good wash cycle. But that still wasn't enough for this resin. In part because of this, and in part because of the next step, which I'll come to in a moment, I decided to cut away the supports at this stage. This would make cleaning easier, which I did in a jar of alcohol using a soft paintbrush, the only way I found that actually worked. Even in the cleaned areas, cutting the supports at this stage is a sticky and unpleasant task. Gloves are a must, not like the clown you see on the screen right now. But personally, I think cutting the supports away at this stage is essential, because once the parts have been properly cleared of surplus resin, it's time for the next stage. Didn't I mention that? Oh yes, The CR3A requires a dedicated curing solution, and this is bought separately, so remember to factor that in when you're doing your price comparisons. The prints need to be placed in a clear container and fully submerged in the solution. Now you can see why removing the supports is so useful. The supports simply take up too much room. The good news is Bluecast tell me that you can reuse the curing solution, so don't throw it away. Once everything is submerged, the container is placed under a UV lamp for 30 to 40 minutes until the colour of the prints changes. Well, maybe it does. After cleaning in water and drying in air, I can't see much difference. One piece here is fully cured and the other isn't. And if you think it's my UV lamp that's the problem, this piece had a further hour outside, soaking up the proper daylight UV rays. In fairness, there is a colour difference, but it's so subtle my camera's not picking it up here. It's definitely not like the literature suggests. Fortunately, the cleaned and cured parts do sand well, which gives you the opportunity to try and rid your prints of the extra supports you've been forced to use. Well, that's promising. Sure enough, the prints cast well. The Bluecast CR3A clearly does its job well and vanishes without any excessive expansion, ash deposits or other nasties. And that is, after all, what we really want. And this is my attempt at Alexander's ring. Okay, not really. This is. Now, my attempt is not a reflection of the product. Bluecast can't be blamed for my casting inexperience. Alexander is a professional, and it shows in his work and my failure. But he's been kind enough to give me a standard to work towards here, so me and this ring will be seeing each other again. So how do I find Bluecast CR3A Castable Resin? Well, there's an adhesion problem due to its weight, but a print on prime coat fixes that. But supports need to be medium to heavy with a generous density, and this can smother the print. The print quality is excellent, just as you'd expect from a professional resin. Now, I'm not overly experienced, but this is the most difficult resin I've come across so far to wash. It seems reluctant to rinse away resin with ordinary alcohol, despite claims that it does. It does clean away, but it takes a while, or maybe a more sophisticated cleaner than alcohol. A curing solution is required, and this adds another cost and another step to the casting process. Actually, for me, it adds at least 2 steps, as I think the supports need cutting away prior to curing, and that's a sticky business. Bluecast's chroma cure colour changing process is chroma crap in my opinion, as there's precious little colour change that I can see. Certainly not what the literature suggests at any rate. There's no apparent odour, which is always a popular question, and there's no shrinkage that I noticed either, though I didn't do accurate measuring. The eventually cleaned and cured prints sand well, so cleanup prior to casting is possible, and when casting, it's as good and capable as any other quality castable resin out there. There are no excessive cracks or ashy deposits that I could detect, so it does do its job. It does print and cast well. But do I like it? Well, sorry, no, I don't. It's not for me. Some people love it, I know, but for me there's better alternatives. Bluecast advertising makes the statement that CR3A is one of the easiest castable resins to print and ensure excellent casting. If that is genuinely the case, there must be a lot of very awkward, time-consuming and messy castable resins out there. If, for example, I compare this right now to PowerCast wax, yes, Bluecast is cheaper, though it's still not cheap. But PowerCast doesn't need any post-print curing, never mind a dedicated solution. It also washes easily, sands beautifully, and prints on light supports. That makes casting easier. But this isn't a comparison video, it's a review, and reviewed it I have. I don't think my findings will be popular, but they're my own and they're completely honest. Bluecast CR3A will work for you. It's a competent product, yet for me, there's unwanted additional steps, and if I factor these in a comparison with other resins, I find my preferences pulled elsewhere. But if we amend Bluecast's statement just slightly, I completely agree with it. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat controversial review, guys. Take care, and thanks for watching.